Welcome to the EarthBody MindSpirit podcast. I'm your host, Mike Stokes, where we discuss all things related to your health, wealth, and happiness from an ecological perspective, blending the wisdom of the ages with the science of today. We also focus intently on how do we create individual health, wealth, and happiness while at the same time enhancing the conditions for life and enhancing the conditions for a thriving, vital society for all people. Today's free masterclass is how to focus your life to achieve your most important goals, specifically for scatterbrains, visionaries, people with lots of ideas, creatives, artists, someone like myself, which is why I'm qualified to teach about this. So by the end of this teaching, I'm going to cover my top 10 practices for focusing your life. We live in the land of a million or a billion distractions. Staying focused is going to be the challenge of going forward until something changes, but it doesn't look like it's going to anytime soon. So without further ado, let's get right into the practices. Number 1, create a lost and found dream box. So this is mine. This is my lost and found dream box. If you're like me and you have tons of ideas, tons of things that you want to do, you're not going to get any of them done unless you focus on them one at a time. And I needed a crutch so that I didn't have to truly let them go completely. It was just a little too painful. So I took things that I wanted in here and I just put them all in just sort of sloppy little cards and stuff. This says, make an awesome sci-fi movie with a killer soundtrack. That was in here. It's still in here. I don't think it's still in the back of my mind, but it's in the box. So the point of the box is that you take everything that you want to do. You put it in the box, and then you pick one, and you work on one. So I'm going to tell you a little story. Hopefully you find it entertaining. Back in 2005, I had one of my box items, and it was surf for a month in an inexpensive country somewhere. So I chose Peru, and I surfed for a month in Peru. I spent like 3 weeks surfing the coast of Peru, and then I spent another week in the jungle because I really wanted to see the Amazon. And I was in the Amazon, and I was thinking about my lost and found dream box, and I was thinking, well, I've got I got to pick my next one. What am I going to do next? I did this surfing for a month in another country, and so I had 3 choices. I picked out 3, so that's the next point. The point is that once you put all these in, then pick out like your top 3. So for me, the top 3 were surf the world, spend 6 months with the wildest tribe that I can possibly find, or own outright my own self-sufficient homestead, meaning no mortgage, energy provided for by solar, microhydro, whatever, food production on site, animals, plants, trees, and then heat, so that we're comfortable during the season. So I could completely unplug from the world if I wanted to. So I was thinking about that, and I actually started to meet the chief of a tribe that lived nearby. That they were a wild tribe that lived in the mountains near Peru, near this little town of Oxapampa where I was visiting. And I decided not to do that. That's another story, which is an interesting lesson on its own. And I decided not to surf the world because this was, so it's 2024. This was, 20 years ago, just about 20 years ago. And I'm 55, so I was 35 at the time. And I needed to settle down. I didn't want to bounce from place to place and do camper van life, which I had been doing. So I chose the last one. And here it is. Here's the card. The card is, let's see if I can get it. I got to reverse the angle. I don't know if that's going to, it's kind of focusing there. Own outright my own self-sufficient homestead, food, energy, water, heat. And then on the bottom it says, I don't know what it says. Oh, no non-income generating debt. So when I took that out of the Lost and Found Dream Box, I knew that was going to be a very long project because I didn't have any money. I didn't really have a plan. I had a little bit of a plan of trying to learn more construction skills and fix up a place and maybe flip a house if I needed to. So anyways, long story short, I now own 40 plus acres in Northern California. Have 2 homes on it, a couple of barns. We've got fruit trees that were planted. I don't have a conventional mortgage. I do have debt, so I have not yet accomplished that part of the goal. I have the property. We're putting together the systems, and now I'm trying to figure out how to eliminate the debt. So this works, is what I'm saying. So there you go. There's practice number 1. Write down everything you want to do. Just put it on little cards. Be a husband. I got that one. That one I accomplished. That accomplished that along the way. Lead transformational seminars. So that one's actually kind of in play right now. I'm doing this via YouTube. We didn't have YouTube back then. So they're in here, but I'm not focusing on them. I'm focusing on the homestead part, and I'm focusing on finishing up the homestead. Now, the truth is that even with this, I still get trailed off and scattered, and so that's what the other 9 things come into play, because this is not sufficient. It's good practice number 1. Okay, practice number 2. Oh, let me come back to one thing. Along the lines with this, focusing on one thing, there's a wonderful book called The One Thing by Gary Keller. He's a real estate investor. So the one thing, so you can read the book. I'll put the link in the descriptions. But the bottom line about the one thing is you want to get in the practice of asking yourself this question. What one thing can I do that will make everything else in my life easier or unnecessary? So for me right now, I have my second house, and it's in the final stages of remodel. And the one thing that's going to make everything easier or unnecessary is when I finish that remodel and then rent it out, because it's going to increase my cash flow and make it easier for me to do things that I love, like making instructional videos and teaching people and getting on to a lot of the other interests that are still left in my scatterbrained vision of life that I'm working on. All right, so that's number 1. Number 2 is, okay, this is probably the most challenging one. Create a trash bucket list. Now, this was a process that I started, about, 10 or 15 years ago, after I realized that I was still totally not able to do everything that I wanted to do. So, and, let's be clear, I'm not giving up stuff that I want to do. I'm giving up a lot of stuff, but not everything. So, for example, we still, my wife and my child and I, we're still very committed to international travel. We have a camper, and we go down to Baja on surf and fishing trips. I go surfing in South America and Central America, mainly Central America, and I'm also looking to go to Portugal. And so there's still a ton of things that I'm doing, but there's certain things I'm not doing. And one of the things I'm not doing anymore is skiing and snowboarding. I made a conscious decision. So I grew up skiing in Mammoth Lakes, California. I spent several seasons there. I'm very good at it. I did it for 35 years of my life. I took up snowboarding. I was pretty good at that too. I really enjoyed it, but it's too much. The cost, the energy, the time. I don't want to say it's too much. It's something that I have consciously chosen to put in my trash bucket list. I'm putting it in the trash bucket list. So, not something I'm interested in. I am interested in it, but not as much as surfing. So surfing, kayak fishing, and boating in general, and hiking, and backpacking and camping, totally still interested in all those things. And they're a lot cheaper and they're a lot more accessible for what I want to do, for my life and my time and my budget. So that is gone. So there's another wonderful book by Greg McKeown. McKeown, I don't know how to pronounce that. McKeown, something like that, called Essentialism. And so the main point of essentialism is kind of the same thing. You got to narrow down what you're doing with your time and your energy. And I think this is the genius of what he points out. He points out that we don't want to feel the pain of letting something go. So a lot of times I hear about, people like, oh, so-and-so cheated on me, or, and then now there's a big bad breakup. You know why that happens? Usually it happens is because someone they've already left the relationship in their mind, and they don't have the courage to stand up to someone and say, like, this isn't working for me. I need to move on. And so they take an easy out. And that feels less painful to them. So it's more painful in the long run because it creates bad dynamics, which are going to cause your life to suck. But the point is that we resist the pain of letting things go. So there's other, Marie Kondo and the life-changing magic of tidying up. A lot of, that's gained a lot of popularity over the last 10, 15 years. One of the biggest stumbling blocks that people run into is that pain part. That's why she has a system where you start with the easiest stuff. You start with the stuff that doesn't matter, like junk mail or just things you don't care about. And then the last thing you do is like that box of mementos to try to figure out whether you should keep all of that stuff that you've had. So every time you let something go, it's almost like you're letting go a dream. You had a dream that was associated with that thing. For right now, one of the things I'm struggling with is on my property, I inherited a fish farm, four tank concrete tank system that's for trout. And there's not a lot of water. There's not as much water as I'd like here for that system to work very well. But I'm really struggling with, like, am I going to let go the vision of having a fish farm here on this property? And it's painful. So that's the point. The point is to create a trash bucket list. And I'm going to do that right now. I'm just going to, even though it's like I can't even really imagine it, I'm going to put on here fish farm. And you know what? It's too painful for me to put it in the trash bucket list. So I'm going to put it in the lost and found dream box. So that's kind of what I'm talking about, is going through this process and like, okay, I'm not focusing on it now. It lives in my dreams in the future, or it's completely out. And letting go and putting it completely out is the preferable item. So I'm just going to try this out for a second. I'm going to put it, I can't put it in there. It's not for me. I really want to do a little fish farm. Maybe I'll scale it back to just a little tiny fish farm operation. So you see the process? You got to go through the process. It's painful. I don't want to let that go. It feels like a little part of me is dying. But that is really the thing. You got to confront those things, and at least start to have a dialogue with those things, with those parts of yourself. All right. So how to focus your life. So number one, we have your lost and found dream box, where you're going to catalog all of your dreams. You put them in here, and then you're going to go on a trip like I did, or you're going to go somewhere and you're going to pick out your top 3, and then you're going to figure out what the most important one is for you. Now, I wouldn't recommend, like I did, that wasn't the first time I did it when I picked up the self-sufficient homestead one. That's a 15, 20-year plan. I started with smaller ones and then worked my way up to a big one. And then 2, you're going to create your trash bucket list and try to figure out what are some dreams, some passions, some interests, some things that you can let go. It's also upgrading your relationship with death. I really think one of the dysfunctions of modern society is our relationship with death. In the ancient Celtic societies, I'm reading a history of the Celtic people right now. And the Celtic traditions and most of the pre-monotheistic traditions, there was a much better understanding of the cycles of life and death. A much better, not understanding, acceptance. We all understand the cycles of life and death, but we want to sort of push it away. We want to push it away with technology, live forever, and not even contemplate just the destruction that comes. It just comes. It cycles in and out. Destruction, death, darkness, winter, they're all, the God symbol used to have both sides, the destruction and the creation. And now it's like all we want is this creation. We don't want to think about destruction. But that makes us dysfunctional. It makes us disassociate from the totality of life. So, let some stuff die. And here's the thing. When you let parts of yourself die, it opens up for new parts of you to be born, and lets you accomplish lets you accomplish those things that are really the most important to you, not the surface level, cars and houses and, dates and, getting, having a harem or whatever your thing is, as a young man, I remember all those impulses, but that all fades away. All that really matters is the deep sense of purpose and fulfillment. I'm going to sidetrack just a little bit more. There's a lot of young men are really getting into Jordan Peterson these days, and I get a lot of value from Jordan Peterson's work as well. But there's also his approach is very monotheistic, very much nature is not God. Very much God and the center of our purpose and the part of our life is outside of nature. And that somehow we need to separate from nature to find that ultimate purpose. He can correct me if I'm not understanding him accurately, but I pretty much see that. And I think he runs the risk, and we all run the risk of destroying nature by getting so much into this adventure and purpose of our individual life. One of the ways I like to think about it is, if you think about the self, this body, this mind, it's, 90% or 99% is below the conscious surface, is the functioning of the system as it is. And this system comes from 4 billion years of evolution. So I am a 4 billion year old nature being. And a lot of this psychology talk that's going on right now disassociates from that. And that is very dangerous. We're going to have our societal problems. That's a whole other issue. I'm just talking about we need to fundamentally acknowledge that we are nature. I am nature, you are nature, everyone is nature. And from there, we can figure out how to organize our society. It seems like we keep trying to organize our society, the last 2,000 years have been pushing down, or 10,000 years have been pushing down on nature. It's okay, let's suppress nature so that we can be something. And that's not going to work. It's pretty dumb. So there is a way where we can honor nature and let's honor that unique consciousness and creative mind that is, a child of the cosmic everything. From the moment that the universe was created, the whole universe is in some sense within us. So number 3, y'all know it. It's meditation. And I say it like that because everyone's like, oh no, I'm just going to talk about meditation again. I want to talk a little bit about, I'm just going to say, so there's an episode that Andrew Huberman did about a practice to focus your brain. And he was saying that there was a study that showed that if you did this particular type of exercise, not even really meditation in his mind, for 17 minutes, that it permanently rewired your brain to have less of what he called attentional blinks. So as you age or as you consume more social media or use more screens, your mind's going to blink out and then come back, blink out and come back. Often happens to me. I think of something I got to do. I'm walking to the other room. what was I going to do? I don't even remember. I have to go back and retrace my steps and figure it out. Those are attentional blinks. So he was saying if you do this one particular exercise that you will have less attentional blinks. And he said it was permanent. Like it's a permanent change in your brain structure. So he called it just sitting with your eyes closed. And Huberman talks a lot about the visual systems. That's what his study is about. But it's really true. When you close your eyes, you stop bringing in all the input through your eyes. And you're just paying attention to more of what you're feeling in your body, including the breath going in and out. Now, in 1995, I began taking 10-day Vipassana courses with S.N. Goenka, and I've done probably 12 over the years. It's basically the same practice. Now, in his practices, he's very staunch. Well, he's not alive anymore, but the system that he's created is very staunch in that you have to do like a 10-day retreat every year, and you've got to do 2 hours of meditation a day. Now, 99.99% of us are not going to do that, myself included. I very much struggled with the daily practice and not kept it up. That's what comes along with being someone who's sort of creative and artistic and scatterbrained and visionary. But I do, from time to time, sit down and do a 20-minute meditation. And so what Huberman was saying is that you're basically just close your eyes and pay attention to what you're feeling and you're breathing. And then when your mind wanders, you bring it back. And, and that's it. And the one thing I want to say about meditation is here's what people get wrong. People think, I can't meditate. Anybody can meditate. What you can't do is judge your meditation. So people judge their meditation all the time and think like, I sat down and my mind wandered the whole time. That doesn't matter. What matters is that you sat down. You sat down for 20 minutes and maybe you were fidgeting, but that fidgeting and sitting down is better than, scrolling or flipping or whatever. It's where your mind was at that moment. So for me, I'll notice when I get back into meditation, some days I'll sit down or like I've sat down and I could barely sit still, or I could barely sit straight up, or I could barely pay attention to my breath. So when I'll do my meditation, I'll sit down and I'll pay attention to my breath, or I'll just scan my body and I'll just notice what I'm feeling. So the Vipassana technique is basically noticing your body sensations from the top to the feet and then back up to the head. And I'm not teaching you meditation. I highly recommend, if you really want to learn how to meditate, that you go do an S.N. Goenka 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. They're free and they feed you. It's insane. I'm so happy that they exist. Anyways, but I'm just telling you, like when I sit down to meditate and I'll scan my body and I'll just pay attention to my breath. And then here's the key. Here's what the only thing you have to do to have a successful meditation are these three things. One is you have to sit there and not get up. If you open your eyes, try not to open your eyes. And the other thing you have to do is not judge anything. You don't judge where your mind went. You don't judge what you're thinking about. None of that. And then number three is that you don't identify with anything in your meditation. You don't say, that was a great meditation, or that was a horrible meditation. That's very similar to judging, but you don't identify with. Goenka is very clear when he talks about you don't identify with the sensations. So if you feel something that feels good, whatever. You feel something that feels painful, whatever. It doesn't matter. You're being objective. You're not identifying with the body. You're just totally noticing with sort of as pure objectivity as you can. So don't judge, notice with objectivity, and just be there. And then any meditation is successful. The only meditation that's unsuccessful is one that you didn't sit down to do. And I guarantee you that if they put brain meters up to your brain, or if you buy those fancy devices, and you sit down, before you sit down, that your brain activity is going to narrow and center and focus, and that idea of what Huberman was saying, those attentional blinks are going to reduce. So you've heard it before. I'm telling you again. I'm just trying to give you a little more clarity and trying to tell you that if you have this idea that you can't meditate, well, it's wrong. It's just totally wrong. Anybody meditates. Once you sit down, that's all it is. Anybody can sit down and close their eyes. You do it every night. All you got to do is sit down, close your eyes, and with a little intention, here's one more piece of it, is when your mind wanders and you notice that it wandered, it's like gratitude, curiosity. Oh, my mind wandered, bring it back, try to focus on the breath or on your body. And that's it. There's all kinds of fancy techniques about, like, you'll do this and you through the mantra and look at this thing and do all this. To me, those are all peripheral. I mean, I am biased because Goenka method is kind of focuses in that particular style as well. But all those are crutches. And I think ultimately they all will get in the way, because ultimately you want to just be present in your body, be present with your breath, and not have anything else pulling you out of being in your body. So that's number 3. Meditate. Even if it's for 2 minutes, close your eyes. Like right now, let's do a 30-second. Felt like forever, right? But your brain just changed. You became more focused. Even if you were just swimming in your mind and like thinking about stuff, just stopping, closing your eyes, and breathing, it does focus you in the moment, which will focus your life a little bit more. Now, there are other techniques I would recommend. If you're super into learning more about the focus, I would do the Huberman After School episode on YouTube. There's also a wonderful TED Talk by Chris Bailey about how he limits screen time, which is another one of our practices later, and then how he researched what that is and how that works, which I highly recommend. And then Huberman's deep dive into focus is also pretty good as well. Number 4, search, don't scroll. So I noticed, in my family, we're pretty rigid with my child's screen time. We do let her watch instructional, educational, I call it educational, not sensational YouTube videos. But I realized we were sitting at the home screen and we were scrolling through the home screen on the suggested page. And the suggested page is the algorithm, right? And the algorithm serves one purpose. The purpose of the algorithm is to keep you on platform, is to keep you, in a sense, distracted. And in a sense, just dopamine hits. So if you make it a practice to search and not to scroll, then you're taking control back. It was so interesting when we first did this in my house, and we're sitting there and we're like, what do we want to watch? And we all just kind of sat there for a moment, like, I don't know. Because we weren't being spoon-fed what it was that was out there. And pretty soon, my wife was like, well, I really need a refresher on how to prune fruit trees. How should we prune our peach tree? So then we searched how to prune a peach tree, and then we, got into that thread. So the point is whatever medium you're in, I don't know how you do it on TikTok. I personally don't use TikTok. So, but if you're in Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, like stop your scrolling, or if you're gonna scroll, make it a defined limited time. So I'm going to scroll for 1 minute and set a timer and then peel off. And it doesn't matter how interesting it is, just peel off. It's not important. So here's the thing. The practice of our time is going to be reclaiming our attention. I mean, that has always been the practice of our time, from 1,000 distractions to 1 billion distractions. The people who win in the future, the people who have happy, healthy, productive, fulfilling lives are those that master attention. So you have to master attention one way or another. Personally, like, we live out in the sticks a little bit because it gives us an ability to focus in a little bit more. Not everybody needs to do that. There's plenty of ways to master your attention from wherever you are. Being on the sticks, I should kind of take that back. I have 10 times more things to do because I got to worry about my spring box. I got to worry about my electricity. I got to worry about my food sources. I got to worry about the 10 things that broke. I got to worry about my road that gets washed out by the rains. I got to worry about the tree that went over the road. So, living in the country isn't necessarily going to do that. So, search, don't scroll. Number 6, so let's go to number 5 and then we'll go to number 6. Number 5 is stop watching ads. Why do you watch ads? Do you watch ads? I stopped watching ads, being 55. I remember, the ABC, NBC, CBS, like the networks and the ads, and that was kind of all we had. And then the Saturday night movie and the Saturday morning cartoons, and I was raised on all that stuff. And then at some point, I got into this idea of attention and how others were trying to basically control my mind. They were trying to control my attention. And so I stopped watching ads. Now, I can't say that 100% because I stopped watching ads on videos. I still see ads from time to time in articles, and I try to blank them out with my mind. It's very difficult. I don't quite know how to do that. But here's what I'm recommending that you do to re-grab your focus and to focus your life so that you can achieve your goals ultimately. Because every one of these little things, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. All these little attention things are taking you away from your capacity to fulfill your dreams. You really only have a limited capacity. You can't do everything, but you can have the life that you dream of as long as you narrow down your focus into that which is going to serve that life. So by stopping watching ads, you're claiming more of your desire body, like don't trust everything that you want. So much of that has been implanted by basically people who want your money and time and energy. That's the game of capital accumulation. People want other people to want their stuff. So stop watching ads. Period. How do you do it on Amazon? I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that one out. How do I do it when I'm reading articles? I don't know. Well, the one thing I do know is I'm trying to minimize the amount of articles I read that have massive amounts of ads and pop-ups and things like that. So I do use a Google News feed, but I'm very selective about it. Like if I see a person who puts an organization that puts up ads, or that I go to read the article and I can't read the article because there's so much stuff, then I just go to this. I select out like not from that provider, not from that provider, not from that provider, and I've tuned it way down to just the people that just do a minimum amount of it. And then the thing that I'm looking for, which I haven't found yet, and this would be, I'm going to switch over to number 10. Stop watching the news. Just stop. What, Mike? I can't stop watching the news. I need to know what's going on. No, you don't. You really don't. What's the last time that the news helped you solve a problem in your life? Like, really let that sink in. When's the last time the news helped you solve a problem in your life? It just doesn't. Now, here's the thing. Like, I spent many, many years, I'm kind of speaking out of two sides of my mouth because the first half of my life, I wanted to be in politics. I was arrogant enough to think at 18 years old that I could go off and be the president of the United States. I really was. I really thought that's when I went to Berkeley. I wrote a letter, wrote my, my essay for acceptance and told them that I was going to be the president. And obviously that didn't work out and no longer something that I desire. I can't honestly say that. I mean, I think it would be great to have that level of power and influence, but man, would it be hard. Oh my God, it would suck. But the point is that I used to be addicted to the news cycle daily. This was happening. I remember when I was 12 years old, arguing Keynesian economics with Ronald Reagan on the television news show. and from there it went for years and years and years. And then at one point I realized that I wasn't getting anything done in my life. I was so busy spinning on all of the stuff that the news cycle, which all they wanted was my attention. They just wanted to add more ad revenue, and that was it. And so I don't remember what it was. It was like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I started to peel out of that process. Now, I very much like to be informed, but now what I'm doing is I'm picking and choosing what I stay informed on. I'm more interested right now in science. I'm more interested right now in anthropology. I'm more interested right now in large cultural and societal trends. I'm more interested right now in progressive solutions to the environmental, the biodiversity loss and the environmental problems that we have on the planet right now. So I focus my attention on those things. I don't let the news cycle choose what I pay attention to. So I recommend that you stop doing that. And one of the things that I'm on the hunt for right now is, it's like, there used to be a lot of people used to read just like the New York Times on Sunday or the LA Times on Sunday or something like that. That's really all you need, is a once a week digest of what's happening in the world. If you really want to know what's happening in the world, get a source that, is highly objective, everybody's biased, but someone's at least trying to figure out where they're biased and how they're biased and why they're biased, and bringing that up front, and then get a weekly digest. If you want to look at, sit down once a week for an hour or 2 or 3 if you need, and digest it. But don't let it take your everyday attention. Use your everyday attention for things that are really important to you. If you want to learn the Maori language of the New Zealanders, then spend the time doing that, not the news cycle. It is seriously a huge waste of time. Okay, that's moving on. Okay, so this is akin to number 2, which I already talked about. Number 6 is let go of some of your hobbies. Let go of some of your interests. So for me, I let go of the skiing and the snowboarding. And then the other, I heard this in a Jordan Peterson talk about Jonah and the whale. What he said, which was great, is how do you know what you want? It's such a great idea. And it's a fabulously deep concept which we all need to put some more time and energy into. How do you know that you actually know what you want? Like, a lot of times you get it wrong. Sometimes you get it right, that's fine, but a lot of times you do get it wrong. So just be a little bit more discerning about, like, oh, I like this, or I want that, or just discerning isn't even the right word. A little bit more humble about what you like, what you don't like, what you want, what you don't want. Just let it just back off a little bit, and when you do that, then you can let go of some stuff that maybe doesn't serve you anymore. There is this fine line. So this is the thing about, studying wisdom traditions. It's never black and white. When you dig deep, you have to dig deep into what you like, what you want, where you want to go, and then go for it. But then at the same time, once you've sort of gone down the path a little bit, and you've accomplished some stuff, and you've created some things in your life, then it's time to kind of peel back and be like, do I really need to hold on to that? Do I really need to... Okay, so here's one that I'm struggling with right now. I got this boat. I bought this boat for $1,000. This is a beautiful 1958 Skagit. And I live in Northern California. The seas are kind of rough. It's got a nice deep V. It's great for fishing. Do I need to put all that time and energy into rehabbing that boat? So let's put it here. So here we go. Like, going back to the other ones. Rehab Skagit. Okay, rehab Skagit. So I don't know, like, interest, hobby, it kind of works. So here we go. Number 6, letting go of some of your interest in your hobbies. I'm not able to let it go yet, but it can go in the lost and found dream box. Boom, gone for now. Not going to focus on it right now. I don't have to think about it. Let it go. Okay. And then in here, I think somewhere I have be a guitarist in a metal band. Is that it? Yeah, anyways. That one's still in there too. And I always tell my friends I'm going to start practicing for my metal band when I'm in 70. Okay. Number 7, get clear on your core values. So it's really, all these things are just going to help you narrow it down so that with all of your ideas, you can filter them through things. You can, try to filter stuff out into the trash bucket. Try to filter things down into the lost and found dream box so you're not like spinning on them. And then one of the best filters is to get clear on your core values. So number 7, getting clear on your core values. When you're super clear on your core values, if something doesn't align with your core values, then you just let it out. If it's an interest or a hobby or a passion, if it doesn't align, then let it go. Then it's easier to let it go. That pain of letting a vision go is less. So, I was just thinking about how I need to share more stories. So I'll see if I can find some more stories. So, for example, my core values: respect for all of life throughout all of time. From the 4 billion years ago till now, and respect my and our oneness with that, our interconnectivity with that. We are not separate from that. We weren't like planted on Earth by some aliens, although contrary to some people's ideas, we are Earth. We are Earth life. So respect for all cultures. All cultures. And for me, a big part of that is the nature cultures, which have been so decimated and their wisdom has been so lost. And there's this cultural rift happening right now where people are refinding monotheism as a reason to hate. As a reason to hate polytheists and nature-based religious and spiritual ideas. And it just breaks my heart, because the religious structure that needs to come out now is a blending of the beauty of the monotheistic traditions and the ancient nature-loving traditions. So anyways, there you go. That's number 2, respect for all cultures and integration. Number 3, for me, is taking personal responsibility. I don't believe in blame. We do have circumstances. We all start in different places. We all have different capacities. We all have different disadvantages. But take personal responsibility and make something out of your life, wherever you are. Don't look outside yourself for the stops. Look inside yourself for the doorways. The stops are going to be there, but you got to push through them in whatever way you can, or go around them or go under them. So take personal responsibility. Minimize cognitive biases. Oh my God, this drives me bananas. This is like I think of the next series that I'm going to do is on cognitive biases and practices that we can take on to minimize cognitive biases. 5, a lifelong pursuit of education. I want everyone. I personally am on a mission to enhance this idea, or to promote an idea that education never stops. You don't get a degree and stop. You just always get more educated. And then also another one of my core values is this idea of blending service, being of benefit to others, to life itself, to the systems that create a better life for us as individuals and for the whole society, while at the same time honoring our individual uniqueness. And even though I was just talking about being a little bit looser about your interests and your passions and your desires, it's a double-edged sword. You still need to be fully in tune with that before you can actually start to let go of some of the things that aren't really aligned. So having a connection to the deepest part of yourself and honoring that's unique and individual, and at the same time being of service to the whole. So you get to have a great life, but you also have to be of service to the whole. So those are my personal values, my core values, to the best of my ability in this moment in time, the way that I can articulate them. And now, anytime I'm thinking about something that I'm going to do, is it aligned with that? If it's not aligned with that, then I'm not going to do it. That's pretty broad, but still, before I had that defined out, I would get pulled in all kinds of directions. Another thing I would say, this has just occurred to me now, is try to live your highest purpose on a daily basis. What is your highest purpose? Like, it doesn't even matter if you know what your highest purpose is. You can know what your highest purpose is today. And my highest purpose today is make this video, and go out and work on my rental unit and try to bring home some income. Those are my highest purposes for the day. Okay, number 8, focusing, tip number 8, and that's back to like the Marie Kondo idea of I don't know if I'm saying that right. The life-changing magic of tidying up. So again, it's this idea of the pain of letting go. So you have to embrace the pain of letting go. Now start with something easy, lean into it. Just start getting rid of stuff. There's another principle that I got from, I think, another TED Talk, and the idea is that you have a limited capacity. You only have, it actually wasn't a TED Talk, it was an interview, that you only have a capacity for so much clutter. So if you find that you're constantly beating your head against the wall because you can't put everything away, you got to get rid of some stuff, and you got to simplify your systems. So start getting rid of stuff. So number 8 is start getting rid of stuff. Start with the easy stuff. And that's the life-changing magic of tidying up, and also getting to a point of where you get rid of enough stuff that you feel like it's manageable. I love going backpacking and camping because it's a very minimum amount of stuff, and it's very manageable, and it opens up a whole other part of your mind. And then back to this idea of reducing screen time and slowing down. In the Chris Bailey TED Talk, he talks about how, our brain rewards us for being scatterbrained, for like that constant novelty and newness, because in our previous incarnation, before we had society and civilization and technology, novelty was an important thing to pay attention to, and movement was an important thing to pay attention to. But now novelty and movement are everywhere, and so you get a dopamine hit when you pay attention to it, but then it doesn't actually help you anymore. So you got to learn. In our house, we have a rule: you can't use the word bored. And the reason that we say that, and I say that for our child and for myself, is because, when you say you're bored, what you're doing is you're training yourself to be addicted to novelty in our modern society. So instead, practice boredom. So practice, if you, and you gotta feel the discomfort of it. So it feels, that's why people give up meditation. Because I can't do it. It's not you can't do it, you don't want to. You don't want to experience the pain of nothing. And that's another, back to the death idea. The death meditations are so good because if you sit there and you truly contemplate death. Now, I'm not talking about like reincarnation and going off to heaven. That's not death. Death is like annihilation. The Buddhist sense of the death, like I'm going away, I'm not coming back. That type of death and that type of nothingness, when you sit with it, opens up capacities and powers and superpowers and wisdom inside of you. And in a sense, when you're stopping the flow, what you experience is this little death. It's like, you almost got to feel, I feel like I'm going to die here. I need to pick up the phone or whatever, So I like, this is an empowering vision for me. I don't know if it'll be empowering for you. Like I really liked the Batman Begins movie. The Dark Knight. Like, what is the archetype of the Dark Knight? The Dark Knight is someone who has mastered the darkness. And to me, what that means is that you master the death cycle so that you don't fear the emptiness. You don't fear the nothingness. You don't fear the annihilation. And you can go into that, and then you shine light into the darkness. And you shine that light, and you open up these worlds of freedom and enlightenment and power and fulfillment and peace and harmony and love and joy by not resisting death. And death. So, and I think it's really powerful if you can just, see that facing nothingness is a courageous act. So that's the thing. Like, we don't honor the courage that it takes to face nothingness. There's so much stuff in the young men's and young warrior and even young women and in this kind of like this warrior tradition that's starting to, this warrior archetype's really building right now culturally. Well, instead of building muscles and that physical exertion, you really want to be a warrior, face emptiness. Just start facing more emptiness. Boy, it's hard. I mean, I haven't been very good at it lately. But after giving this talk, I'm gonna get better at it. So tip number 9 for focusing your life so that you can achieve your goals is it's to be honest with yourself. It's also like, to thine own self be true. And not every one of us is going to be a billionaire or a world-class athlete or a world-class intellectual. You may very well be. And so I'm not here to diminish that possibility in you. But the real question is what do you want? So that's what you really need to be honest with yourself. Like, do you want the life that comes along with being a billionaire? So if you want to be an Elon Musk type, do you want the 16-hour workday, 7 days a week? That's what it is. Do you want the maniacal focus? Or do you want the personal sacrifices of family and life when you become a world record holding athlete? Maybe you do, but that's what I mean. So most of us kind of run around with a fantasy in our mind that we want all the good things associated with our dreams. Being wealthy or, traveling the world or having a great intellectual pursuit or having power to solve the world's problem for good. Most of us who say they sort of pretend that we only want power for good, but we really also want it for selfish purposes as well. That's what money is. Money is just loads of power. So anyways, what I'm trying to say is that we're mostly not honest with ourselves. We mostly want the good without the bad. So be honest with yourself. Practice digging into, okay, if I say I want to live in a foreign country for a year, Portugal is where I'm thinking of taking my family for a year. Like, do I want the pain associated with that? And I guess I'm kind of struggling with that right now because that would entail a lot more financial discipline, a lot more income, a lot more savings, a lot more systems in place for me because I don't want to sell my house and do that. I want to keep my home in order to do that. So there's a lot of work. And so the truth is, if I'm honest with myself, is that I haven't been willing to put in the work to get that. So, and then here's the other part is that's okay. It doesn't matter. You don't have to put in the work to become or be or have whatever you say you want. But the key is, if you're not being honest with yourself, then you're sort of setting up a duplicity in your mind, which is going to cause you to be unhappy or fragment even worse. I've had people close in my life who their psyche's fragmented. So there's this idea in Jungian psychology where you integrate the self into a whole, a holistic, in which all parts of yourself are sort of in service of a higher self. And then if you are dishonest with yourself to a higher degree and you keep sort of compartmentalizing everything and sort of lying to yourself about this little thing and that little thing, like I don't really think it's important if I lied to my wife a little bit, or if I lied to my neighbor a little bit, or if I gave up on my dream of being a visionary philosopher, or whatever your particular dream is. Then you start to compartmentalize and fragment your personality. And the key is you don't see it happening. So in order to really focus, so this idea of focusing your life for achievement requires reflection. So to be honest with yourself requires allowing yourself to see where you lie to yourself. We lie to ourselves all the time, I'm pretty comfortable in my life. Financially, it's challenging right now. And to be honest, I should be probably working a little bit harder on making money rather than just making content that I think is important. It's important for me to make content that I think is important as part of my life purpose. But I have my shadow side too. And my shadow side is I don't really want to manage the details. I don't want to manage the budget. I want that to just be automatic. And thank God we live in the 21st century where I can automate a lot of that stuff and put it online so I don't have to look at my checkbook every 5 minutes. But that's what I need to do. I need to do my work of be honest with myself and see, do I want to manage the finances? That would be my big one. Do I want to manage the finances to the degree that it's going to take for me to accomplish some of these bigger goals that I have about living abroad for a year, having a second house in a little surf town in Nicaragua or Portugal? These are goals that I have. How can I do that so that it's sustainable? Do I want to go through the challenge of that? And I hope the answers are yes, but I don't know, So I just watched Napoleon Hill this morning. So at the same time, wisdom is always a double-edged sword. At the same time you want to be being honest with yourself, you also need to acknowledge the truth that, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, you can't achieve. So it's a balancing act of what do I want? And then focusing in on it. Because we go too fast to what I want. So be honest with your wants. Be honest with what you're telling yourself that you want. And I think this is kind of what I want to say here, and I think is the nugget to take with you. You don't know what you want. I don't know what I want. Now, I think it's fine to pursue what you want, but you have a limited time of resources. So at least let go of some of those wants that seem a little bit less important and focus in on the one that seems the most important right now. So I knew I wanted a wife, I wanted a family, I wanted a child, I wanted a home. Check, 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 check. Those ones are off of my list. I have all those things now. And those were super important to me. Those wants were real, they were deep, they were non-negotiable. But there's a lot of other ones, that maybe will fall by the wayside. Maybe I don't need a surf villa in a small town. I don't know. I really want that one. So again, there's no real right answers. It's just like having the courage and the willingness to question your desires, to be honest with yourself. And let me just end with the David Allen quote: "You can do anything, but not everything." So you've got to narrow the focus. So let's get to the juicy theme of this whole thing is you've got to narrow down your desires, your wants. So bring your wants in. Use the Lost and Found Dream Box. It's up behind me now. Bloop. There it is. Bloop. And then use the bucket list box, or it's the reversed bucket list or the trash bucket list. Use that one to get rid of things. So narrow your desires. Focus on one desire at a time. Yeah. And if you really think about it, delayed gratification is one of those master keys in which your big desires can be fulfilled. So practice limiting little by little by little those immediate gratifications for larger, bigger ones. And I'm going to add one more thing to this list here, and that is bring things down and down and down and down. Narrow. So bonus. So number 10, we already did that. Stop watching media. So bonus practice is cut things into little chunks. So whatever your big goal is, like get it down into the smallest imaginable piece that you can. That was a lesson from my father. He was a professional musician, and he played some of the most difficult pieces for flute and movie soundtracks, like Star Trek and Mission Impossible and E.T. and a lot of that stuff. And his teaching was to take it down to the smallest piece you could possibly get, and then practice that small little piece and do it with rhythm. Like, don't worry about your mistakes, just keep the movement. So this idea of chunk it down to the smallest thing you can and keep it moving. Keep it moving. Don't stop. I mean, if you stop, then the next lesson, the bigger lesson is start again. And that's something that Goenka is famous for saying in his meditation retreats. Just start again. Start. I have his voice drilled into my brain. Start again. That's all he says again and again when you start your meditation. And that's life. Start again. Break it down to the smallest piece. Just keep your rhythm. Oh, you stop. Start again. Break it down to the smallest piece. Keep your rhythm. And moment by moment, just keep going, keep going. And that's what, Hako, the Navy SEAL trainer, says. That's what most all of the big people who accomplish anything, they just keep breaking it down to the smallest piece. There's also a TED Talk. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He was a guy with ADHD. Be really appropriate for this inquiry to watch his video. He went on to do all kinds of weird and amazing things. But again, that same idea of breaking it down to its smallest component and just doing what's right in front of you. Not even thinking any beyond like the exact little thing that's in front of you, which also dovetails to the 12-step work, which is one day at a time. And I don't think that's enough. It's not one day at a time. It's 1 second at a time. What can I do right this second? And just, wisdom can be found in any place. My daughter really likes the Frozen movies. And Frozen 2, they have this saying like, do the next right thing. Do the next right thing. So you just keep doing the next right thing. Keep doing the next right thing. When you can't see, it's hard to get your head above the water, just the next right thing. So bonus practice number 10 is a visual focusing exercise. So in a previous life, I was a yoga instructor, and I recently listened to Huberman's focusing episode. And he brought up a visual focusing exercise. So it's very interesting for me as a yoga instructor to see how the modern science is catching up with the ancient practices. So in Hatha Yoga, there's a candle meditation where you have a candle set at a certain distance from you. I'm trying to put my finger in a way that's not too annoying. That you would look at, like I'm looking at my finger right now. And you hold your focus on that. So Huberman brought up the scientific equivalent of that from his research is with when you're trying to sit down and focus. So if you're trying to focus in the moment, that if you just focus on something at the visual distance. So if I focused on something at the visual distance of the screen, and hold my gaze there for 90 to 120 seconds with trying not to blink. And Huberman says another thing, which I think is very interesting, that when you blink, you reset your time perception, your perception of the length of time. So there's something about holding your eyes fixated on one thing that will increase your ability to focus. And that was my experience when I used to do a lot more yoga and meditation. I would experiment with the different meditation types. And so holding your focus at one point will definitely increase whatever those neurochemicals are that will enable you to focus longer. Another thing in that episode that Huberman brought up is the 90-minute cycles. learning. So sort of ramping up and then having an hour of focus and then ramping back down. And then he also talked about a nap or non-sleep deep rest, or running or biking or something where your view is diffuse. So instead of focusing in, so when you focus in on one thing, you're trying to get something done, and then you back off and just like walk and let things go by your visual field without really focusing on them, your brain has a better ability to process and implant those things in so that you remember them better in the long run. So that's the bonus practice, is to try, if you don't have a candle, you can just use your finger. You can use something on the wall, 90 to 120 seconds. And then in the hatha practices, you would do that for even a longer, more extended period of time. And I would use that specifically if I was trying to hold my focus on something difficult that I was having a difficult time focusing in on. So if you have any questions or comments, please leave them. If you're not watching this on YouTube, YouTube comments are the place that I read comments. So leave those comments on YouTube. It really does help out the channel. If you subscribe to YouTube, download and like on Spotify or Apple or the other audio platforms. If you are interested in my other offerings, those are in the description below. My coaching services and consulting services, are links to that are in the description below. And thanks for being someone who's committed to personal growth and development, and someone who cares about the planet and the health of our society. And I hope to share mind space with you again in the near future.